SpaceX Starship might not fly to orbit this year, suggests NASA paper. Space Exploration Technologies Corporation's, or SpaceX, next-generation Starship rocket system may complete orbital test flights next year, according to a National Aeronautics and Space Administration research report. This paper, part of NASA's submission to the 73rd International Space Congress, which is scheduled to begin today in France, uses public information to share details about NASA's Artemis program. Starship will play a central role in Artemis, which marks NASA's efforts to establish a permanent presence on the Moon. The spacecraft will be responsible for landing astronauts on the Moon, and the research paper provides details about the rocket. B, a tanker variant that forms the first fuel storage facility in modern space. NASA documents cloud future of spacecraft after astronauts move to Orion spacecraft. This document offers a rare glimpse of NASA's plans for the Artemis program, a rocket that flies to the Moon. The first Artemis mission is scheduled to launch shortly after NASA fixes a fuel tank issue in its support architecture, while the third mission will be first to land astronauts on the Moon. Today's research paper, submitted to the IAC by NASA officials, details the agency's plans for the Artemis 3 mission. As part of Artemis 3, the astronaut explains that he uses his SLS to ascend from Earth to the sky aboard her Orion spacecraft. Before that happens, however, the Starship first puts a fuel reservoir into orbit, followed by a tanker to refuel the reservoir. Once the deposit is filled, the lunar version of the spacecraft will take off, refuel from the depot, perform a lunar injection, and then begin its journey to a near-linear halo orbit, or NRHO. Upon reaching its destination and performing the necessary checks and tests, the Starship awaits the astronauts who depart Earth aboard SLS Orion spacecraft. However, what will happen to the Starship after astronauts return from the Moon and make their way back on the Orion is unclear, as after this, the HLS Starship will undock and complete its disposal, according to NASA. NASA also explained SpaceX's progress on Starship, saying that after completing the Starship's 10-kilometer flight and landing, SpaceX is now concentrating on the rocket's first orbital flight test. According to the space agency, this will take place next year and, citing a research paper, says, in May of 2021, SpaceX successfully completed a 10 km suborbital flight and landing of the Starship SN-15 spacecraft, Figure 3. SpaceX now turns its focus to conducting the first orbital flight of the integrated Starship system, Spacecraft Plus Booster, which will come in the next year. The paper was published on NASA's technical report server in August. Since this is his IAC meeting this year, it is reasonable to conclude that the wording indicates that the first Starship orbital flight will take place in his 2023. However, the term next year is still vague and could mean the year following the 10-kilometer ballistic flight test, i.e. 2022, so that may not be the case. At the moment, SpaceX is also working on Starship operations and sequencing systems, making them compatible with Orion for docking. This is because the two mate near the Moon, moving astronauts from the latter to the former. In addition, the Starship's docking mechanism with the propellant depot and the spacecraft's thermal and meteor protection systems was also tested. Finally, NASA will commission SpaceX under an HLS Option B contract this fall. The contract is an extension of the Artemis program and will see SpaceX develop a spacecraft capable of sustaining human presence on the Moon.